I was having panic attacks. I was horrified. 12-hour study days, 13, 14, 15. Why on earth would you go to medical school for 5 years and then not even work as a doctor? Don't kid yourself that you think that you understand when you don't. And my exam results were so much better when I was Guys, I've made it. I have absolutely no idea how, but after 5 years, 4 rejections and countless exams, I am finally done with medical school. And today I'm going to be answering all your burning questions. All of them, what my advice would be, what's happening next, and most importantly, whether it was all worth it. If you're new here, then my name is Faye. I'm a doctor. I'm a doctor. That doesn't make me terrified at all. And for the past almost 3 years, I've been trying to document my life going through medical school and the trials and tribulations that have come alongside that. And this was a video that was requested by you guys to close off this chapter, and I really think it was one that needs to happen, not just for you, but I think honestly I'm going to get a lot of benefit from talking through a lot of these things on camera, almost like therapy. So I've split the Q&A up into 4 sections. 3 sections. I've split it up into medical school, life as a doctor, and also a couple of personal questions to finish off. So we're going to get started straight away with the medical school questions, and we're not going to mess around. The first question is, do you regret studying medicine? I mean, I guess if you asked any woman who has just given birth to a beautiful newborn baby whether she regrets getting pregnant, most of them will say no. Probably because they've already forgotten the pain that they just went through during their labour, and also probably their 9 months of housing a small human being. So I would say that straight off the back of being off the high of graduating and not having worked as a doctor yet, I think it's probably not the best time to ask me. I feel incredible right now. I mean, I'm very stressed. I feel so proud of myself right now, and every single exam season, at the end of exam season, almost immediately as soon as I walk out of the exam room, I completely forget how hard I studied for those exams and actually how hard exam season was on me. And that's similar to now. I think I've blocked out how difficult medical school was. So academically and in the way that it was hard, I loved the content in medical school. There is nothing more interesting than learning about your own body and learning about something that is so applicable to real life, in my opinion personally, and actually challenging myself and pushing myself after doing so badly in my A-levels has been incredible for my self-esteem. It has really shown me what I am capable of when I put my mind to it and when I invest time into learning about the best ways to go about things. So, you know what? Academically, no. Then we come on to a little bit more of a trickier area, which is systemically. Obviously, systemically in the UK, it is a little bit of a mess right now. And I think the decision to pursue medicine as a career in the UK is a unique question, and I won't be able to answer that question for another year because I've never worked in that system. But I definitely think that that's probably the area that I potentially am most likely to regret my decision. And then I guess the next way that it could be challenging is mentally, and mentally my answer would be no. Again, I think it has made me a much more resilient person, and again, it has shown me how strong that I can be as a person, but I also can understand that that might be another reason why people regret studying medicine, and that is completely valid. I am waffling already. I was going to try and make this a quick Q&A, and already that has gone out the window. Next question, things you wish you knew before studying. Number 1, when you go on work experience or you're considering a career in medicine and they tell you how the system is, believe them. But when you're 18 and someone tells you that you shouldn't go do medicine, you kind of ignore it, or you think that you understand when actually you really don't. It is tough. Don't kid yourself that you think that you understand when you don't. The system is a mess in the UK at the moment, and you definitely really need to make an effort to try and understand that. I think something else that I also wish that I'd known, which I mentioned in a video that I filmed yesterday but will probably be coming out after this one, about uncommon study advice that you don't normally hear in relation to medical school, and that is about the conversation around well-being, which is obviously so important. But I think the conversation around well-being in medical school is rightly focused on well-being, but I actually think that there needs to be more of a conversation about well-being in terms of your performance in exams. So something I really wish that I had known, and I actually think it took me until this year to realise properly, is that when you see people on social media and they're doing these 12-hour study days, 13, 14, 15, I was guilty of that. I would vlog in the library from arriving at the library at 8 a.m. in the morning and leaving the library at 10 p.m. at night. And I was doing that because everyone around me was doing that. Whereas in my first year, I had so much better balance. I made exercise a non-negotiable every single study day that I had. I made sure I was hydrated, I was eating properly, and my exam results were so much better when I was looking after my mental well-being in comparison to when I was just working these 12-hour study days, because I felt like that's what I should be doing, that's what everyone else was doing, that's what I was seeing on social media. And actually what happened is I was going to bed straight after the library, not thinking about anything else other than work, and I was having panic attacks. I wasn't being able to sleep. I was not eating properly and thus feeling fatigued and not being able to answer questions properly. Not exercising, especially as someone with ADHD, was impacting my ability to focus. It also wasn't giving my brain a chance to rest. I was feeling ridiculously anxious, nauseous, but ultimately not able to focus at my peak performance. And this is where I think a conversation really needs to be had, because let's be honest, I think that I'm guilty of this. Is I hear these conversations about well-being and looking after yourself, and I listen and I vaguely understand the importance, but I think if you're a medical student, you got into medicine for a reason, and that reason is probably because you have worked ridiculously hard. And if someone's telling you to look after yourself when you feel a pressure to work ridiculously hard, you're probably going to ignore them. But if we have this conversation about looking after your well-being to make your performance better, I think actually that's going to be what makes students, high achievers, medical students perk their ears up and actually listen. On the topic of looking after your well-being, today I'm joined by a very beautiful water bottle. You may have noticed it's giving very much Kim Kardashian kitchen vibes. Not only is this a very beautiful water bottle, but it also purifies your water and kills 98% of bacteria. And this beautiful, wonderful device purifies the water for you just by pressing this little button here. You charge up the water bottle here, and then it gives you 2 months charge, and you are all set to go. All set for your long library days, keeping yourself hydrated, looking after your mental well-being, making sure that your mind is sharp and performing at its peak. I'm very excited to take this on my long shifts, because I will be going back down south, and obviously we all know how bad it is to buy single-use plastic. So if you were looking for a new library best friend, I would really recommend the Lark water bottle. I will link it down below. Also, if you want to buy it for maybe someone who has just graduated, or someone who's about to start uni, or maybe just someone who's going through a little bit of a stressful time in their life and you just want to give them a reminder to look after themselves, then this is the perfect gift. Something else I wish that I knew before starting medical school is obviously don't compare yourself. There are going to be some people who will literally see a slide once and will be able to photographically memorise every single piece of information on that slide, and don't beat yourself up if you are not one of those people, because it's very easy to focus on the people who seem like they have it so easy and to be jealous or to beat yourself up that you're not inhaling textbooks and regurgitating them in full form. But on the other hand, it's also easy to compare yourself to the people who are working 12, 13, 14, 15 hour study days, giving up their social life, spending every waking minute in the library, and comparing yourself to either of these groups is not healthy. We all have our own goals. Not everyone wants to be in the top decile. Not everyone wants to get 90%. And it's so important to not compare yourself. But I do understand that when you're looped in with a bunch of people who've always been the smartest in their year in school, there's going to be an element of competitiveness, and it is an active struggle to try and resist the urge of comparing yourself to these other people. Was it worth the struggles? Financially, absolutely not. I will link some better resources to explain the financial implications of becoming a doctor in the UK. I have a very large student loan. I'm starting on a salary that doesn't really reflect the amount of work that I've put in over the past 5 years, and the amount of responsibility that I will have working as a doctor, and also the emotional toll that it will take on me by working as a doctor. I think the strikes are a very controversial topic at the moment, and I'm not the most eloquent at explaining them or explaining the reasons for them, which is why I'm going to link much better resources in the description box below. But the main message that I want to get across to anyone who maybe doesn't understand the strikes, or maybe is hearing a lot of negative press about the junior doctor strikes in the UK, and that is the doctors who are striking are the doctors who have not left to go to Australia, who have not left to go work in a tech startup or consultancy or another profession completely. The doctors who are striking are the doctors who want to stay working for the NHS, they want to stay working as doctors, they want to stay working in the UK, but it is becoming harder and harder and harder to justify that when a doctor of the same grade in America, Australia, France gets paid so much more and in a lot of cases has much better working conditions than we do in the UK. I myself know how much I loved studying medicine. I am actually pretty certain that I will enjoy the actual job of being a doctor. I think all the anxieties and reservations that I have are in relation to the system and the current issues with the NHS at the moment, and it's just really heartbreaking to me that there are so many people who have been incredible doctors or who would make incredible doctors who are turned off this profession, not because of the actual profession, but because of the systemic issues that could, in my opinion, be fixed. And not only are they not being fixed, they're being made worse. I think if you're in medicine, none of this will be new to you, but I think a lot of my friends who I speak to who aren't in medicine don't really understand how many people are leaving. Like when I tell them that a lot of doctors graduate and then they never even start working as a doctor, they just go find another job in finance or tech or consultancy, I think they're like in disbelief, like why on earth would you go to medical school for 5 years and then not even work as a doctor? But I do think the pay and working conditions just make it harder and harder for people staying in this profession when it impacts your ability to be happy in your life, to be financially secure, and also to be a good friend or family member, because you are giving so much of your time and energy to a profession where the working conditions are really taking its toll. So financially, absolutely not, in short. If you're going into medicine for the money, you are definitely going into it for the wrong reasons if you're doing it in the UK. If you are intelligent enough to get into medical school, chances are you are intelligent enough to get a job that pays you a lot more money than you would ever make in medicine. But I really enjoyed the course. There was something really satisfying about challenging myself that much academically, and I'm really grateful for everything that I've learned and the experience that I had in medical school. I also have some really good memories of medical school. And also the thing with medical school is it allows you to prolong actually being a proper adult. And obviously when I say a proper adult, in my head, I see being a proper adult is when you start your first proper adult job, and a lot of my friends started their first proper adult job at 18, whereas I've got to be a student until I am 24, and I've loved it. I've absolutely loved it. So was it worth the struggles? Not money-wise, but in every other sense, I would say yes. And also, guys, nothing good ever came easy. In this life, unfortunately, you have to work hard and you have to kind of push through a lot of discomfort to get to where you want to get. And I'm definitely in this really like high place at the moment where I do just feel really proud of myself and very emotional about, I guess, it all ending in this chapter closing. Obviously, my confidence in my abilities that I have from passing my exams will soon be shattered when I start working and I feel like an idiot. Next question, advice for young people wanting to do medicine. My advice for young people wanting to do medicine in the UK is to only do it if you are willing to move abroad. Not everyone wants to be far away from their family. It's definitely something that you should consider before you go into medical school, because if you don't, then you may be trapped in this system that isn't always conducive to having a happy career. Other advice that I would say to people wanting to do medicine in the UK is If you're considering doing the medical apprenticeship, which has just come out, be really, really, really cautious. If you do a medical apprenticeship, there are lots of conditions, including that you have to stay in the UK. And personally, I would just full stop not advise that at all. For the government to have that sort of control over you is a very, very, very scary place to be, because if a lot of doctors are trapped into these contracts with the government, then I think it does allow the government to make working conditions and pay conditions worse, because you don't really have any leverage of leaving. At least now doctors have the leverage of being able to go abroad or go to different jobs. But I think if you're signing your life away, please, please, please consider it, because I think I was in a position where I just so desperately wanted to get into medical school. And I think you become so fixated on it that sometimes everything else around it can become very hazy, and you lose focus of all this other important stuff just in pursuit of this one single goal. If someone had said to me 5 years ago, when I was getting rejection after rejection after rejection, oh, you can do a medical apprenticeship, but you will have to work in the NHS for X number of years and you won't be able to go abroad, I would have jumped at the opportunity. You wouldn't have had to ask me twice. You would have never seen me sign a contract so quickly. And that terrifies me, because I know that there'll be so many other 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds, you know, even like 30-year-olds who have wanted to do medicine for so long. And if they're given that opportunity, they are going to leap at the chance, because it is a chance to achieve a dream that has maybe seemed so inaccessible for so long, and they will lose sight of those things that will really, really, really matter in 10 years' time. And I think that is what the government is banking on. Advice for students going into their final year: definitely try to stay on top of application deadlines. I was so grateful that I had Evie, because Evie was so on top of all the deadlines and I just followed her. But I think that with final year, there's so many different deadlines for like your applications, deadlines to have sat certain exams for, deadlines for ranking your choices. Final year in the UK isn't actually that bad, because I think most medical schools, the exams are just pass or fail, but you still have to sit those exams and you still have to pass them, all whilst juggling all these plates of applying for a job, trying to find somewhere to live, trying to decide where you want to apply for jobs, trying to rank those jobs, trying to sit the prescribing exam. And I think that is what can be the killer, the constant hurdle after hurdle after hurdle after hurdle. Another bit of advice that I have for final years is it's completely normal to have a little bit of a breakdown about whether you are ready to be a doctor. I had one frequently. Every so often I would say, I'm not going to do F1, I'm not going to do F1, I don't want to start, I'm going to take a gap year, rah. And it took me a long time to realise that the reason I was saying that was not so that I could focus on YouTube, or it wasn't so that I could have some time off, have a breather or go travelling. It was because I was really, really scared of the responsibility. But I think it's important to remember that it's important that you're scared. Me being scared is what is leading me to put so much effort in to make sure that I am as clued up as possible, and I am going to be the best possible doctor that I can be on the 2nd of August. And if you're not worried about the impending responsibility that you're going to have, that is a little bit more concerning. I think I'll probably be able to talk a little bit more about that point maybe in like 6 months' time, when I've actually done a little bit of working. But from what I've heard from other F1s is that all the other F1s are in the same boat, and the first 2 weeks are a really, really, really steep learning curve, because there are just some things that you can go to as much placement as you want, you still will not know until it is you that people are looking at and calling doctor and asking questions to. But I will come on to later what I'm doing to like prepare myself. Any other advice for students going into final year? Enjoy every moment, and definitely when you're on placement, have the mindset that placement is where you're going to prepare yourself as much as possible for becoming a doctor, and try take on as many of the roles of the F1s on the ward of your placement. I was really lucky. I had a couple of placements where the F1 doctor was literally like, you're going to do this, and this, which is what he would do before the ward round, like prep the notes, like make the phone calls, anything that he was doing, as long as it was appropriate, he would get me to do instead. And obviously if I didn't feel comfortable, I'd say that, but I really was trying to take on as much of the roles of an F1 as possible, because when you're a medical student, it's not on your head, and final year is the last dress rehearsal that you're going to get, so just make sure to try and do it full out. Sorry, a little Musical theatre kid analogy. God. Hardest year of medical school, that is a different answer, whether it is academically or emotionally. Academically, 100% it would be fourth year. That was, fourth year was where all our marks were coming from for our deciles, and I knew I really wanted a job in London, so I worked myself really hard. I did the whole 14-hour study day thing. It didn't even pay off. It wasn't worth it, guys. Please listen to me when I say it wasn't worth it. But I worked myself really hard, and I put a lot of pressure on myself academically. I had my first ever panic attack because I got back from the library and I lay in bed and I couldn't think about anything other than revision, and I literally just lay there hyperventilating, and I didn't realise I was having a panic attack until the next morning. I was really breathing really heavily, and like my head was going really dizzy and my hands were going tingly, and Evie was like, "So you had a panic attack?" And I was like, "Oh my god, yeah." So like academically, yeah, fourth year was definitely the hardest. Maybe third year as well, because that was the end of our preclinical years. So it's the most content. It is still when you've got quite a lot of preclinical science heavy stuff, which is quite a lot. But I would say emotionally probably this year. I did vlog some quite cryptic vlogs where I was going through a lot of really not so fun stuff. And actually that was not academic struggles. It wasn't even like in my personal relationships. It was, how can I put this? It was in relation to medical school, but it wasn't academic. So that was definitely the hardest emotional year. I think I've really had to lean on a lot of people during that time period. And I think that's, I guess, another really important point about medical school is there are lots of other expectations on you aside from the academic expectations. There are expectations that none of your friends who don't do medicine will have put on them. And that is something you have to consider when you are deciding whether medicine is right for you, because if you do not meet those expectations and something bad happens in relation to not meeting those expectations, it is very difficult. And it's definitely the hardest thing that I have ever had to go through. Next section, life as a doctor. We are starting off with, would you consider moving abroad to work as a doctor because of the UK system? It breaks my heart to say this because I am very pro state healthcare in terms of everyone's got their own political beliefs, obviously, and I respect everyone's political beliefs. However, the NHS as a concept is not just a fluffy, charitable concept. State healthcare is an investment in the population of a country and an investment in the economy of a country. When you have a healthier population, they are more productive, they work harder, they take less sick days. When people are healthy, they are able to do so much more. We pay less out in benefits, we pay less out to care for children, care for elderly, because the population is more able to do those things. And again, I'm not going to make this too political, but something that has always guided my political beliefs is something that my mum has always said to me. Something that guides her political beliefs is if a country can't look after their sick, their vulnerable and their children, then they are failing as a government. And for me, when politics all gets very complex and convoluted, I always find that that is such a good anchor for me. And I feel like the NHS epitomises that. It looks after the sick, the vulnerable, children. But as well as being this beautiful, kind, caring concept, it is also just good value for money. And it breaks my heart to see what has become of such an incredible concept. And what's also horrible is the way that the NHS has become, I think will no doubt impact the view that people have on state provided healthcare in the future, and in a negative way. And it's really sad to see, which is why it does break my heart that I would definitely move abroad. I think that the altruism of healthcare professionals is obviously what attracts them to healthcare, but I think it's something that is weaponised by governments to constantly push them for worse pay and worse working conditions. Because you have gone into a career where you want to have a positive impact, I think governments see that as a justification to not pay you very well and not create working environments that have good working conditions. And it's ridiculous because any other profession, you're allowed to care about how much you get paid. I think a lot of the press narrative around junior doctor strikes has been about how selfish doctors are for striking and caring about how much they get paid, but it's so important to understand that two things can be true. You can become a doctor because you want to help people, but you can also be a doctor and want to be paid a wage that reflects your skill set and your responsibility and the emotional and physical toll your job has on you. Again, another rant. This has literally just become a very, very, very political video. I am sorry. How are you prepping for your new job? Great question. So very, 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 very kindly, I put up an Instagram story asking any of you guys on my Instagram who are doctors what your tips would be. Got a lot of cardio specific ones, and cardio is my first rotation. So I made a Notion board compiling all the tips, and then from those tips, I compiled a further document of research based on the tips. And then I'm going to make flashcards on them to prepare myself so that my cardio knowledge is top notch, ready for the 2nd of August. To give you a little example, a lot of the advice that was given was know the drugs, the doses, the treatment plans for common cardiac conditions, so acute coronary syndrome, or also knowing how to explain cardiac procedures in a patient-friendly manner. So for all of those, I compiled the information and then I'm yet to make the flashcards. Once it's all nice and pretty, so maybe by the time that this YouTube video goes up, I will include the Notion page that I've made to prepare for starting life as a doctor in the description box. So if you did want to see it, then that will be available to you, hopefully, if I get my ass in gear. But I have so much to do right now. I really hope I have time to do it, because it'd be really helpful and I wish someone had done it for me. Do you think life as a doctor might be less fun than uni? I loved studying. That is a very nerdy thing to say, and I definitely did not love studying when I was doing in my A-levels, but I think the concept of learning is a concept that I do think feeds a human desire to be developing and growing, and it keeps us interested and engaged and passionate about what we do. So I think I'll miss the intense studying side, which sounds a little bit weird to say, but I'm very lucky that life as a doctor is continuous learning. But I definitely won't be spending as much time studying as a doctor because I will be working. I also think that probably having more independence as a doctor will be really, really, really nice. As a medical student, you are under the close watchful eye of everyone else. You don't actually have any real responsibility as a medical student. Everything is done under someone else. So I think I'm excited for the responsibility, I'm excited for the independence, I am excited to get home and not have to study for exams. So maybe even I might have more free time. I'm excited to be making a regular wage, even if it's not the most spectacular wage, it is regular income. And I am actually excited to meet the other doctors that I'm working with. I think if you get a good group of F1s, I've seen people make really, really, really good friends with people that they did F1 with. So fingers crossed, I'll keep you updated whether it is as fun as medical school. Obviously that is going to be a lot more responsibility, and I do think that I now feel like a proper adult, whereas when I was a student there was part of me that just didn't really feel like a proper adult. I still felt about 14 years old. How did you manage your time? So I actually don't think I did the best job of managing my time at all. I feel like for 70% of my time at medical school, where I was also doing YouTube, I constantly felt like I was just fighting fires. I took every single day as it came, and every single day I just had something to do, and I was just trying to keep my head above water, to be honest. Like a little duck floating along, frantically kicking their legs under the water. It may have looked from the outside looking in like I was doing medical school, having a social life, and also doing YouTube, but in reality I was just about managing to keep all those plates spinning without one of them or two of them or all of them falling off and crashing. But there's so many mistakes that I made time management wise, and I will definitely make a full video on this in a couple months time. So if that is something you do want to see, then make sure to comment underneath, let me know, and subscribe of course if you're not already, because I think life as a doctor and balancing YouTube will just be a whole different ball game time management wise. But I'm looking forward to being able to implement the learnings from the mistakes that I made into life as a doctor and hopefully be a little bit more together. When I have nailed it, I will do a full video, but for right now, a couple of my big tips. Color-coded Google Calendar if you have more than one responsibility. So for me, it'd be social media, medical school, and say like my personal life. If you have a role in a society or if you are involved in a research project, make sure all those different areas are on different Google Calendars, color-coded, so you can see them really easily and keep them separate, but see them all together as well. That really helps. Outsourcing simple tasks. If you are spending ages just doing something that doesn't require that much skill, go on Fiverr, find a virtual personal assistant, spend a tenner, get someone else to do it. I think saying to someone, oh, pay for a virtual assistant, that seems like so bougie. Like it seems like, oh my God, like you have a personal assistant? Oh my God. But I wish it is something that I did sooner because your time is precious. And God, in this day and age with the cost of living, a tenner is literally 2 meal deals sometimes, you know? And that is an hour of your time that you could spend doing something else, looking after your mental well-being with your friends, your family, or something that is going to be more productive than you doing a very basic minimal task. So for me, literally 2 days ago, I started off inputting my work rota onto my Google Calendar, and I realised this is not the best use of my time. And I found someone on Fiverr who did it for £8 and color-coded it for me and made it look all nice and all pretty. And I found someone to do it and messaged them all within 10 minutes. And they did a couple of other simple tasks for me as well. And for £8, you know? I don't even think you have to be that busy to justify using a virtual PA, because I spent that £8 and actually that evening I got to watch telly with Dylan guilt-free, and that's what time management should really all be about. It should be about being efficient and effective with your time, not just to achieve your goals, but to make sure that you're living your life to the fullest, and so that you're happiest. Last one, then I promise I will move on, is Sigma and Notion. I'd have no idea where I would be if I wasn't using Sigma and Notion. Sigma is my browser, so that allows me to organise all the different areas of my life and the tabs that I've got open for all the different areas of my life. And then Notion, which I have a video on Notion currently, but I'm going to do an updated one because I've learned so much more about how to use Notion since the first video, and it's going to be based on common reasons that people give up on using Notion, because I know a lot of people start using Notion and then quickly they get a little bit confused or they can't keep it up. So yeah, if you do want to see that, then maybe leave me a comment below, or again, subscribe so you don't miss it. Tips on ranking jobs. I obviously messed up my Notion template. I thus ended up mixing up my rankings and getting my 4th ranked job, but my 4th ranked job was not what I thought it was, unfortunately. So double check, triple check, quadruple check, because actually I felt like such an idiot for doing that. And then I put it up on Instagram and on TikTok, and really reassuringly, I actually found that there was quite a few people who'd done the same. It's only the next 2 years of your life, so just make sure that you check. Really check. Last section is just a few questions that are a bit more personal. Are you working in a hospital with any of your friends from medical school? No, I'm not actually. I don't know any of the doctors that I'm going to be working with. I've spoken to one girl who seems really lovely on Instagram, but other than that, it's all going to be new faces. But I'm not too far away from my close friends from medical school, so I think that we will be having many emotional coping debrief dinner, I think, when we all start to struggle. Final question, and I do think it is a pretty apt one. It is, do you feel you've grown as a person? And I think that whenever we're in situations that really challenge us emotionally, mentally, academically, they always bring out such an accelerated period of growth, and I think medical school has been no exception. I achieved things that I never ever thought that I was capable of achieving. Passing my medical school finals after doing so rubbishly in my A-levels, getting my first job as a doctor in London, again after not even thinking I was going to get into medical school in the first place. This YouTube channel, I really doubted whether I was academically capable enough to pass the exams I needed, let alone pass the exams that I needed to become a doctor, whilst also trying to spend upwards of 10 hours a week on editing videos every week. I have got through emotional situations that I never, ever, ever thought I would be able to get through either. But I'm so glad that I pushed myself through and I challenged myself, because I'm definitely a much stronger and more capable person because of all the challenges and all the hardships. And I have no doubt that life as a doctor will be exponentially more challenging, and hopefully all the tears and stresses that I'm sure I'm going to go through next year will be worth it, because I will have grown exponentially in 12 months' time again. Right guys, thank you so much, not only for watching this video, but for joining me on this journey for the past 3 years. Reading the messages on my results made me cry, real life tears. I'm so lucky to have such a supportive community in the form of you guys, and genuinely, as cringy as this sounds, I really do not think that I could have done this without you. I think that every single word of encouragement, every comment brightens up my day and has really helped me get through some really challenging times, and I will forever be so grateful for that. In the next phase of my time on YouTube, I really want to carry on bringing you guys the content that you deserve, hopefully some doctor vlogs, more study content, more lifestyle content, and I would really be so grateful if you continue to join me on this journey. I am very excited to see where the next year takes all of us on this equally as crazy journey on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I will see you in the next video. Mwah!